Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's PD Bonanza session of Engagement Features on Zoom. I am Stephanie Korn, an Instructional Tech Specialist at East High School, and I am joined today with Beth Paleo. She will be monitoring the chat and letting me know if there's any questions that we need to address along the way. So for our presentation today, we'd like to give special thanks to the other district LRC directors and instructional techs for helping put together this presentation, and for Sarah Can as well, who has helped create a lot of this. We also have some great resources. We have the District 303 Instructional Tech YouTube, where you will find a lot of YouTube tutorials and inspiration videos to help you in using your instructional tech with your classes. We also have Instructional Tech for Families and the Staff Professional Learning site. And both of those are great resources to provide to your families and to use yourself when you need support with instructional tech. So let's talk a little bit about some Zoom terms. When you hear the word host for Zoom, that is referring to the teacher. When we're in the classroom setting, I am your host today, but as a teacher, you would be the host. We also have a co-host. You can set up a co-host during a Zoom session. This could be a co-teacher, a teaching assistant, a specialist, another team member, somebody who you want to have most of the capabilities of being a host, but not maybe somebody who's going to be in your Zoom meetings all the time. If you have somebody who's going to be the teacher for you, or somebody who is going to be with you, like a co-teacher all the time in your Zoom meeting, somebody you may want to be able to start your Zoom meeting for you. The alternative host is the great option for this one. Those you set up ahead of time, they can only be licensed users. And so you would put them in, and then they could start a meeting for you when you are not there. Participants are students and learners of your Zoom meetings. So today we are going to talk about some different features you can use to engage your students. We'll talk about audio sharing, nonverbal feedback, polling, chat, and teacher whiteboard. We will show you how to use them, and we will also give you some ideas of how you can use them in class. So let's first talk about audio sharing. Many teachers, when they start their class, they like to play a little music or have something going for the students to listen to while they're waiting for class to start. We have found that the Chromebooks get taxed easily when doing Zoom. And the more you put into the Zoom, the more taxed they become. So if you want to play music, or you just want to hear the audio of a video, or maybe just an audio file of some sort, you can just share your audio. So that prevents the data of the video from going through. Makes it a little easier on our student Chromebooks. So let's see how to share our audio. Okay. When you are in Zoom, you would click share. So let's go ahead and look at that from the teacher perspective. In Zoom, when you move your mouse around, you will see your toolbar come up here at the bottom. When you click screen share, you will see some, it normally starts with the basic options. In order to get to the advanced options, you'd have to click advanced. If you last used advanced, which was what I did, then it will default you to advanced. And it gives you the option of just sharing your music or your computer sound. So I select that and I click share. Now what I can do is I can go to YouTube or go to someplace you're playing your music, and I can play my music. So now the only thing that is being shared with the students is the data of the music. So that may help some of the logged down issues that you may encounter. All right, let's stop that. All right, the next thing we have is nonverbal feedback. Nonverbal feedback is so helpful when you ask that your students keep their microphones off. It's a way for them to communicate with you when you don't have that verbal option all the time. This is what your view looks like for both the you and the student. And this is the view from a Chromebook or your laptop. Now you and your students would see all of this right here. Your students would have raise hand because you don't need to raise your hand. So when your students raise their hand, have a question, you can have them click the raise hand. Right? That way you don't have to have them unmute without your permission. You're able to either unmute them yourself, or you can say, yes, Jimmy, you have a question. How may I help you? So it makes it easier to know which students need help. And then the clear all is teacher only. So this gives you a way to clear all of those nonverbal cues that your students are giving you. If you happen to be using a device that is not your laptop, like iOS or Android mobile device, this is what that's going to look like. And a student view is going to look like this if they're using their phones or a different device. Now let's see what that looks like. Here we have our participant list. In order to get this participant list, you need to click on the participants. Down here, you have your list. You will see the rest of your students here, and you will see the nonverbal cues up here, right? These mean that my video and my audio, my microphone are off, so you can see which students have their audio and their video off just from the participant list. Right? Any nonverbal cues are going to go up in there. So if you ask a yes or no question just to get sort of some formative feedback, they could click yes, and you would see that. They could click no, and you'd see that. If they're feeling like they're bored, they got it, it's ready to move on, they could say, let's move faster, or let's move slower. Let's back up and go through that again. Now under more, we've got a thumbs down, we've got thumbs up, we've got an applause, yay, which is great for presentations. And we have a need a break one for those students who need a break every once in a while. That's a great way for them to tell you they're taking a break without having to unmute and tell you. And then if they either need more time or they've stepped away, right? Depending on how you want to set that up as your class. Now notice down here, because it tells you how many people have chosen each one. All right, so it tells you just by looking down here if you've got some nonverbal cues you need to look at. And then when you're ready to clear all, you can just clear all. So when looking at the participant list, you will see it one of two ways. You will either see the floating pop-out list or you will see the merged list. It's up to you on how you want to view it, what works best for you. Some teachers like to have their view put up on a different screen or on a screen beam so that they can see all their students. They want their participant list separate. Maybe that might be on their device or another screen. So if that's the case, you'll want the floating pop-out list. If you like yours all together in one screen, you can have them merged together. So if you have yours merged, but you want it to be popped out, you would click this caret. If you have it popped out and you want it to be merged, you would click the three dots and then select Merge to Meeting window. All right, now let's move on to polls. Polls are a great formative feedback feature. Students can give their opinion on things. You can give it as a bell ringer. To create a poll ahead of time, you go into Zoom, you find your meeting, you click on it, and then you select poll. You would have to click that tab on poll to get to the polls. This one does not have any polls created yet, but we can create a poll. All right, title is optional. You don't have to have it, but it is helpful if you've created more than one poll to know which one is which. You type your question here, and then you type in your answers. Now you can either choose between single choice or multiple choice. A single choice obviously is just going to give the students will only have the option for one answer. Multiple choice gives them multiple answers to choose from, and they can pick whichever ones they want. If you don't want the names to be gathered for that's doing your poll, then you'll click anonymous. Okay? And then you click save to save the poll setup. Now let's see what it looks like to launch a poll. When you're in a meeting, you select your polls. So it'd be down here next to polls in the meeting controls. And then you select the poll you would like to launch. If you only have one, you'll only have that one option. You select your poll, you click launch poll. Right? Then you will see what your students are inputting for the poll. Right? It'll go, it's real time. So it'll go and change as students enter their answers. All right, once you are finished, you say end poll. You will have your the option to share the results when it's completely done. When you share the results, that goes out to the students, so the students can see what the results of the poll are. Now, the nice thing about polls is that you can save the polling report. So if you're using a poll as kind of a formative assessment, you don't have to worry about the answers that your students gave during the course. You can go back later and look at those results when you are not in the meeting. Now, in order to do that, you go into your meetings, you find find reports, click it, and click meeting. Right. Once you do that, you click poll report and then select the meeting and then click generate. Choose which type you'd want, probably all participants. And then it loads the report for you to download, and it would download right to your device. Right. So the information you are going to get on a polling report is the username and email address, the date and time they submitted their answer, and the poll question and the participant's answer. Right. So it's a great option for you to go back and look at how your students performed on a formative assessment this way. Now, other things that you can do with polls is you can create quick quizzes. Maybe you watched a video or you read something and you just want to see what they gathered from that information. Lots of teachers do SEL checks, especially as bell ringers with their students. You can see how they're doing and know who to reach out to if they need additional support. And then a lesson pulse check. See how your students are feeling. Do they understand the topic? Do they still need help with the topic? So there's plenty of options you could use with polls. Right, now let's go ahead and look at chat. You may or may not know that you can change the chat feature so that you can chat just individually to a student. So if you need to send one student a message, you can change that by clicking next to the two. It defaults to everyone, but then you can select somebody to send a message to. Now, students are defaulted to only being able to send a chat to everyone. You can go into your settings and change that. So if you had a course where it would be helpful for them to be able to chat with somebody else, you can go into your settings and change that. But keep in mind that there's no way for you to monitor what your students are chatting. So that's why it's defaulted off and should be off most of the time. Once you are completely done, you can save the chat, and the chat is saved in your Zoom folder in your My Documents folder. Once we got the Zoom app on our devices, it automatically created that folder for us to save our chat in. Then we can also merge our chat window to our meeting window. So let's see that. That is what it looks like when we have our participant window, our video window, and our chat all merged together into one. If yours is like that, but you want to separate your chat out, you can do that by clicking on the caret. Or if you have yours popped out and you want to merge it together, you can click on the three dots and click Merge to Meeting Window. All right, now let's practice a waterfall chat. This is something you could do with your students. I have found often that some students wait to respond in a chat, or they don't respond at all, or they want to see what other people are putting in before they respond. A waterfall chat is a way to kind of counteract that and prevent that from happening. So if you have two groups in your class, you could ask a question of group number one, and they type in their answer in the chat, but they don't send it yet. They have to wait until you count down 3, 2, 1, and then they all press send at the same time. So you can see all of their answers at the same time. Now, group two gets some time to read those answers, and group one can look back and see what other people put as well. All right, now group two can answer which of those they resonate with and why, doing it in the waterfall format. So they type in their response in the chat. They don't press send until you say 3, 2, 1, send. And then there's another waterfall of answers. So you can do that back and forth. You could do it as groups. You could do it as a whole class, whatever works for your particular class. And then feel free to take some time to debrief with your students. Ask what the experience was like, to kind of separate out the writing and the reading. They didn't have to worry about missing what their peers were saying while they were writing. All right, so as waterfall practice, we are going to ask the question, what is your favorite fall flavor? So in the chat, but don't press send yet, you're going to put pumpkin spice or you're going to put apple cider. And we'll see whose favorite fall flavor is. All right, we'll go in 3, 2, 1, send. All right, so that's what the experience is like for your students in doing a waterfall chat. And it looks like the majority of our teachers have pumpkin spice as their favorite fall flavor. It's pretty even though, just a little bit more. All right, now let's look at the teacher whiteboard. In Zoom, there is a whiteboard feature, but we call it a teacher whiteboard in Zoom because our students on our Chromebooks do not have the capabilities of annotating on the whiteboard within Zoom yet. We're hoping that that will be coming out very soon. So now to bring up a whiteboard, you are going to click the Share Screen button and then click the whiteboard and click Share. So let's see what that looks like within Zoom. So down here I have Share Screen. I need to go to my Basic and click Whiteboard and then click Share. So now my whiteboard pops up. There's nothing there. So we need to annotate on it. All right, these are all the tools that you have to annotate. This is a great way for you if you're doing a physics problem, a math problem, a science problem. Maybe you're showing different grammatical aspects of a sentence, how to use apostrophes, not when to use apostrophes. You can type text on it. You can write on it, you can draw on it. The spotlight is cool because if I change it to a spotlight, then it makes it a little easier for your students to see where you're pointing your cursor, or I could change it to an arrow. Right? The format changes your line width, what your font is, what color you want to use. You can undo, you can redo, and a really cool feature is you can even save your whiteboard. So when it gets to the point where your students can start annotating on the whiteboard, you could save all the work that they did as a PNG or a PDF. All right, and then if you want to move it around, you just kind of move it that way, get it out of your way. Now, if your students are using a device that's not a district Chromebook, if they're using their own laptop or their own, an iPad, they should be able to do the annotation. So you could kind of take a pulse with your students, see how many are using their Chromebooks, how many are using other devices to know if this feature you could use and allow them to annotate. Now, one thing to be careful of, if you come up here, when you share your whiteboard, your toolbar comes up to the top. You have to click more, and then down here, nobody will be able to annotate until you click Enable Annotation for Others. Right, once you click that, your students will be able to annotate. And then as they are annotating, a little box will pop up and you'll be able to see who is annotating what on the screen. If you don't want to see the names of the annotators, then you can click Hide Names of Annotators. But in class, I usually keep it up so that if anybody puts something inappropriate, we've got evidence of who actually did that. So that is how you share a whiteboard with your students. Now, what happens if you want to do a collaborative whiteboard? We don't have that feature in Zoom, but what we can do is use Jamboard. Jamboard is an awesome alternate to a whiteboard that is already in Zoom. If you've never used Jamboard, what Jamboard does is it is very similar to the whiteboard we just saw, but it's kind of a mix between Google Slides and Google Draw. So if you go to your waffle and you scroll down, you'll find Jamboard there. All right, it's loading my jam files. If I want to create a new jam, I just click the plus. So this is something that you can have prepared and ready to go before class. Then you just share it with your students. You click share, make sure you change your link, copy the link, and then put it in your Zoom meeting in the chat box. Okay. So then students can click on it and they can access the Jamboard. Now in the Jamboard, they can do a lot of the same things that we did on the other one. If you have it set up ahead of time, you can add additional frames. So if you're doing group work, you could have one frame for each of your groups, or you could have one frame for each of your students and then have them come onto their frame and do their own work. Over here is your tool board, so you can add images, you can add sticky notes. There's all sorts of things you can do with Jamboard. Right. Now, the one thing you do have to be careful of is with the Chromebooks, if the student's Wi-Fi is not that great, the Chromebooks have a hard time dealing with having Jam open and Zoom open at the same time. So if some students are having those issues, we recommend that they close out of Zoom, they work in the Jam, you can see what they're doing, you can see how engaged they are, and then they pop back into the Zoom meeting, either when the certain time has come or when they're done. So this is a great alternative to using the whiteboard in Zoom if you need student collaboration. All right, so that is the end of our presentation here, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I'll stick around until the end of the time, so if you want to play with Zoom, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you may have.